Panic over, mate. Panic over. Hello, everybody. Hello. Look at this lot. They're all here. Sadly, there's people here that I've fished with. They know the truth. They know the truth. Dick knows the truth. That hooligan knows the truth. So does that one. That one right at the back, he knows the truth at all. Right. Enough of that. Yatesy, he couldn't come. Chris Yates, so he couldn't come. I mean, it wasn't absolutely made crystal clear, I don't think, in the blurb. When I put my post up this week about it, I did say that it would be a recorded interview. Next to him not being here, Derek said, let's try and get an interview with him, something we can broadcast right on the day. Anyway, so it happened, and though I've known Chris for 40 odd years, he is the world's worst at A, remembering something, B, actually doing it, and C, even getting out of bed. Right? Terrible. So to get this date in April, early April, for Miles and myself to go down to do this interview in his home in Tollard Royal, I made umpteen phone calls, and he eventually agreed to do it. And I said, right, it's going to be next Monday, Chris, it's going to be next Monday the 11th, next month. And I rang him on the Friday, and I wrote him a postcard. Remember postcards? I wrote him a postcard on the Friday, and he said, Chris, 11 o'clock, I'm going to let you lie in, but it's Monday, this Monday, 2 days' time. So we get there, Miles and I, stuck in the middle of nowhere, Tollard Royal, and I've been to the house many times. Walked up the drive, knocked on the door, not a bloody sausage. Nothing. I go round the back, and it's like the back hole of Calcutta round there. I'm frightened to go in, There's probably immigrants in there or something. I mean, it's awful. I mean, the house is completely overgrown. Anyway, I eventually went up the drive. Of course, you can't get a mobile phone signal, so I couldn't get a single. And then after 10 minutes, and Miles is saying, oh Christ, I hope he's here. There's all these people, like months later, here we are all waiting to, we've got to do it. We said we were going to do it. Oh, don't panic. And then out of this little window, right at the end of the building, at the top there, his little head sticks out. Oh, it's you! For God's sake, get out of bed, will you? We got him in the front room. He made some tea for us. Tea that I could actually drink, not unlike some tea that people make here. Oh, hello, lad. And we got the definitive Yatesy here. This is pure magic. The fun, the laughter, the quirkiness, everything is in this interview. I'll put some pictures together with it, so it'll make a little sense. But the opening question, which you'll hear me say, tell me about Rod. When did you first? It's going to be Redmire, but it wasn't just Redmire, as we find out. So, if you can give me my little clicker, it's up on here, right? I'll just move this out of the way because some people. Right, so off we go.
Are we making noises?
We are.
Oh yeah, I can see. That's right. I can see the.
Right, meeting Rod. Did you correspond with him before Redmire?
Yes.
Tell me.
Yeah. When I was given the thumbs up by Tom Mintram, because I'd met Jack only perhaps 6 months previously to when I was invited to join, because there was a vacancy came up, and he said, well, you'll be one of the two new boys because there's another person coming in as well. This was in the winter of 72. So this is January 72. He told me that, and I said, what's his name? He said, Rod Hutchinson. I said, do you know that name? No, I've never heard that name. He said, he sounds like a bit of a character. I get these sort of slightly crazy letters from him. This is Jack talking now. And I said, could you give me his address? I'd like to write to him. And because if we're both, starting again somewhere new, it'll be great to, see if we can come up with some ideas about how we might tackle Redmire. And so we started to write. About once a month.
Oh, right.
And the writing got more and more kind of shambled as we got nearer and nearer June, because the season would be opening on the 16th, and I think it was Jack, Tom, and Bill Quinlan were on the first rota. It was 3-man rota each time. They were on for a full week. I think there was a couple of days beforehand, when the unfortunates, who were John McLeod, Bill Walkton, and Pete Climo, they were there just for 3 days, because it's always Sunday to Sunday.
Yep.
And they had, I think it was like Friday to Sunday, so they just had 3 days, and then it was time for the, Jack and Tom and Bill, and so they had a good week. And during that week, we didn't know what was going on until the Angling Times came out, and there was a picture of Jack with a 31-pounder. I mean, wow! And because there was no grapevine then, you couldn't like there is now. I'm talking about internet grapevine. It was just you might get a phone call. So-and-so's had a 20-pound, no! And it was all really exciting, but no one knew anything. So to read it on the front page of the Angling Times was really good. And then we were away. We were gone. On this, having, I suppose maybe I wish I'd kept the letters. I think I've got a couple of them somewhere. But 3 or 4 times we would write, but we had written, and then it was the 21st of June, 26th of June, something like that. Mm-hmm. I should remember, but anyway, it was towards the end of June, and I came down with Jasper, and I went.
It's your brother.
My brother. But this is an interesting little aside from my first day at Redmire. I didn't go straight to Redmire because they were going carp fishing to Landry and Dodd Wells.
Yep.
And they thought it'd be great if we could just call in at Ashley on the way, because we knew that one of our pals was fishing there, and I can't remember who it was, but Tom was going to be calling in to see if he'd caught anything, and Tom said, if you want, we could meet you there and I could tell you what's been happening.
Oh, right.
Because Tom was a stickler for the rules, and we weren't allowed to arrive there while Tom was packing up. It was sort of, oh no, you can't do that, and I thought that's a bit weird, but anyway, so I had to meet him at Ashley to see what had happened. So we'd that was rather nice, because it set it up. Who was it? I think it was Chris Seeger.
Oh,
Chris Seeger, that's right. Chris Seeger was fishing there.
Yeah. Sounds right, yeah.
That's right. And somebody had a 26-pounder, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, so I got them. I got a bit of a idea of what had happened during the week, and the only person other than Jack to call to fish was Bill. Mm-hmm. 26-pound common. So anyway, we met on the dam, Rod and I. My brother.
So you pulled the car up. Was he already there?
Yeah, he was already there. His Morris Traveller was already there. This beaten up old, Morris Traveller with all the wooden frame at the back. The classic Morris Traveller. And it always had a kind of limp, his car, because the suspension had gone on the rear offside, and so it looked like I had a limp when it was going on the road. And anyway, yeah, he was on the dam. He was wearing a big ex-army greatcoat. I remember this, great. And he was just sitting with all that sort of hair he had, and he was just sitting down, just gazing out at the water on the dam track. And I came down. In his recollections that I've recently read, that he hasn't published, in his memory, he was asleep in his bivvy, and I was coming around looking for him. That is not right, because he never kept a diary. So although he probably was asleep before I came down, when I found him, he was sitting on the dam, looking out across the dam, and I didn't wake him up. He was there because he looked at me and he said, "Are you Chris Yates?" And I said, "You must be Rod." And he didn't get up. I just went over to him and we shook hands, and I said, "Did you get a fish on hemp in the end?" Because he was telling me he'd been trying to catch fish on, practicing, as it were, with small baits. He was already experimenting with small baits, and he was going to see if he could catch a winter carp, which was one of those things that very rarely happened back in the 70s, because we had proper winters then apart from anything else. Mm-hmm. But no, he hadn't caught it. Yes, he'd hooked a carp. He'd hooked a big carp on hemp and lost it. So he was going to give hemp a try.
What did you have in your bag?
In my bag, I had maggots, because that's what they were catching them on. But I also had pond snails. I thought pond snails would be, so lots of pond snails, which I collected from my own garden pond, mm-hmm. and a few worms I dug up. That was it. That's all I got. Maggots, snails, and some worms. And Rod also felt that worms would be worth a try.
Yeah.
And that's all we brought, and not that much. I probably brought 2 pints of maggots for the entire week. We were there for 7 days, from Sunday to Sunday, virtually the last week in June '72. So, and we were both very, very excited, and we both didn't know what the hell we were going to be doing or how we were going to do it. And it was that lovely kind of sense of anticipation, and anything could happen. And we had the whole place to ourselves, because it was a 3-man rota, and Bob Jones, not Bob James, Bob Jones, who was a school teacher. He was, because it was obviously still term time in June, and he would get the weekend off, but we wouldn't see him till the Friday night. So we had it to ourselves until the Friday night. So we had virtually 4.5 days. We arrived at midday. You could arrive at midday on the Sunday, and the others had to be off by midday. Mm-hmm. So, and we used to always, except when Tom was there, we would always arrive before to see what had happened. We'd always have a good chat.
What was the weed like that year?
Pretty dense. It was good. I was really pleased to see it, because I used to hear Tom complaining a bit about the weed sometimes, and that it was. But I had always felt that if there's plenty of weed around, that was good, because it just made stalking that much easier. And I'd always ever stalked. I'd hardly ever done any sort of long sessions just sitting stationary. I found that not very productive, apart from anything else, because you could always find the fish feeding somewhere, especially if there's plenty of weed around, plenty of stuff leaning into the water, lots of trees. There's going to be something happening somewhere.
Did you walk round together, or did you?
We didn't do anything for a while, maybe an hour. We were just sitting, just talking.
Did you see any fish?
And that was the great thing. I'm sure I must have told you before, because these bubbles started to come up. Quite a few bubbles, and our eyes were getting bigger and bigger. And then suddenly this common. It was grey. It was an overcast.
Right.
And it hadn't been sunny all day. It was just a lovely soft grey day, and this common, probably a mid-20, just came up no more than 25 yards from us, and just did a half turn on this, and went down again. And this great ripple spread, and Rod's reaction was classic, just a baby. And then he went off to get his rod. He said, "I'm not hanging around here any longer, I'm going to get a rod." And it was just so good, and he was so completely, blown away by that as I was. But of course, I'd been there before. He'd not been there, but I'd sneaked round it 2 years previously, in '69, on the way back from Landrindod, had a friend who used to know someone who worked at the house, and he kind of got us in that way. And we called in September on the way back from Landrindod, and so I had seen a carp roll at Redmire, and I'd been to Redmire, and in that we had to sneak around. We weren't meant to be there, but there was somebody fishing when we were there, and it was Bill Quinlan, but he was asleep and he never knew. 4 of us. There was Jasper, my brother Nick, and this friend of ours who also Morris Traveller. We were travelling in his Morris Traveller. Pete, that's his name. Pete. He was
not Pete Smith.
No, it wasn't Pete Smith. I can't remember his second name, but anyway, he got us in there, and Bill Quinlan was asleep on his bed in his bivvy. Well, it wasn't a bivvy, it was just a tarpaulin thrown over a brolly, and he was so deep asleep we thought, that's all right, we'll just carry on.
69. Baits. Now, did you really use jelly beans?
That was Rod's idea. Yeah, jelly tots. Jelly tots. They were.
Explain what were they like?
They were a bit like sort of soft Smartie, kind of, and also jelly babies. He tried that was his idea, but I thought licorice all sorts would work. And we would try all sorts of things, and now and again we'd have he'd get pickups, but I think he did get one on a jelly bean. Yeah, he did. But in the first week, we weren't quite so radical. We were just thinking we were going to get them on a traditional bait. It wasn't until later we started to use all that stuff. Although I did have an artificial moth. I brought a moth because and with my Mark IV Avon, I could cast, which was like had the action of a sea trout rod. I could cast it, sort of 30 yards almost, and that nearly worked because they would lie up in the weeds, and I cast this moth in the evening over this big common, and I just twitched it over its head, and it came up, and I went, and it just blew it away in the end. It nearly took it. It was just going to take it, and then the last minute it kind of just and blew it away. Oh, I washed it away.
What did you make of his fishing? So you saw Rod fishing. I mean, what was he like? Was he always on the lookout? Would he disappear inside the bivvy, or was he
very
always
intense, very focused. We were both up trees a lot of the time. We spent a lot of time up trees. Me, and I always fancied the east bank. That was my favourite bank. He was almost always on the west bank, which had more willows, more climbable willows, and alders. You had the islands on that bank,
yes,
on the west bank. So he was often up those trees, and I was on the trees on the other side, but up towards the shallows. And I just liked that side. And it was good because that meant that's my territory. There was a sort of, there was this line down the middle, this dividing line. Okay, that's the Hutchinson side. He's got the west bank. I've got the east bank.
Can you remember the first big fish he caught while he was with you from Redmire?
The first one he caught.
No, the first big one he caught. Yeah.
It was the second week. The first week we just wanted to catch a carp.
Yep.
And he caught the first one. He was stalking up in the shallows, and it was so. I've got to tell you that's the first one, but then it makes the bigger one seem bigger, and that was a 6-pounder on a worm, and he'd had several takes and missed them, and finally got one. And I was on the east bank, and I saw him strike. I saw him up the tree, and I saw the line going, and then there was a splash, and it wasn't a big splash, but it was a carp. And I just shouted, "You got a bloody Redmire carp, haven't you? To get round here now! Can you bring the net? I'm never going to land it from up here." So, and it was 6 pounds. It was fantastic, and that was we had to celebrate that. It was great. Mm-hmm. But then that morning, I just hooked my first carp and lost it, and by then I'd with encouragement from Rod, I just said, I think this might, I'm going to give this a try. I said, what's that? And because I always used to make the same breakfast every morning. My fishing breakfast was scrambled egg with sweet corn, which was a nice mix on a stove. But before I chucked this tin of sweet corn in with my two scrambled eggs to cook, I said, "What do you reckon? Do you reckon that sweet corn would work? It might be worth a try." That's all he said, and I thought, yeah, I reckon it will. And that evening, I hooked a carp. Was it in the evening? No, it was in the morning. The next dawn, I had a fantastic run and broke on the strike because I was so excited, and that was it. And then Rod got a 6-pounder, and then the next evening, I got a 11-pounder on sweet corn, and that started me rolling. But he didn't get the best. I think I had about maybe 10 commons that night. Until the end of that week, and the best was 16, which was like a monster, you know. And it felt like when we first saw it roll, it might be a 30-pound. And he did catch quite a few, all on sweet corn too. Right. So we were rolling, and then the next week. We had to wait 2 weeks, which we could hardly bear, you know. And we wrote twice each during those 2 weeks, exchanging all kinds of ideas. And he said straight away, "I'm not going to fish with sweet corn. I'm going to try something else. You stick with your sweet corn. I'm onto something already." And he'd already, he didn't tell me what, but I just thought great. And he had a 25-pound common. Probably on the Wednesday of that second week, and there's a picture in Casting of the Sun with Bob Jones, who was there for that week because it was the beginning of his summer holidays. He's up to his waist in water with the fish in the net, and there's Rod holding his rod.
It's a great shot.
Yeah, and he's got that sort of expression of triumph and joy, which is wonderful. And we both caught, both had our first 20s that week. I caught a 21 on sweet corn, and he had his 25-pounder on a baked bean. He decided just to, just straight out. Tinned pulse. It was baked beans, but I didn't discover that for another couple of weeks.
Of course, this is years and years before the herring, so they were directly on the hook.
Yeah.
What kind of hooks were you, both you and Rod, using? Can you remember?
Hooks is hook. The very idea of hook makes me wince because I lost so many fish. That week.
Not to your hooks.
That week that I came, but I had great faith in Model Perfects, Alcock's Model Perfect. Yeah. In fact, my first 20 was on Alcock's Model Perfect, and when I got it in, it opened quite a lot because they were quite soft metal. Mm-hmm. And I'd never had fish that just fought as quite as hard as those Redmire fish, and that's why I wasn't really prepared. But before I landed that fish, I'd had maybe 3 or 4 hooked. I could have had 6 20s before Rod had even arrived. He didn't get down there till the Monday. And I'd lost 6 fish, and they all come off the hook. And I was using Jack's and Tom's favourite hook, and Bill Quinn, and they all used low water salmon hooks. And they showed me what they were doing. They were solder blobbing the ends of the shank. And they'd because they were long shanks, so they cut the shanks down, solder blob, and then do a whip the line on.
You could master the Domhoff knot, could you?
Yeah, it was
72. Yeah.
It was the Domhoff knot, that's right. But I liked a short shank hook, and that was that was stupid. Yeah, I like them really short, so it just looked like a U. Why I do not know, and I lost. None of these fish stayed on, but they were all big fish. So and I lost 6. 2 of them I hooked them right under the bank. So when Rod arrived, I said, "You won't believe it, I'm in tears, I've lost 6 fish." Great, and he rubbed his hands. "I'm so glad you haven't got anything yet, because if they're feeding, it doesn't matter, you're going to catch one. And we're going to have a great week." And he was just really happy to know they were feeding. So,
talking about Rod being in the water, just tell us the tale, that incredible tale of hooking that, what plainly, as we were coming into the colder months, what plainly you both thought was a possible record carp, and you had a dinner appointment that night, and just explain the story, because Rod went in twice, did he?
Yeah, he went in twice. This was, it's one of our most epic epic adventures. It was the 30th or 31st of October 1972. Rod had been there all week. I couldn't get down there until the Friday, and so I only had from Friday evening till Sunday lunchtime. But he'd been there all week, and on the Tuesday I had a phone call from him from the phone box at Langaran, and he was incoherent. Oh, what? That sort of, I can't do the Lincolnshire accent. You got to get down there now. And what's gone wrong? What's happened? I thought something terrible happened. No, I've just seen it. It does exist. I thought, what, is he talking about the ghost? Or is it, no, the big one, the big common, Jack's big common, I've just seen it. And he was fishing in Ingham's, and this fish had rolled, he said, probably 30 yards out, and it had been cold and grey and nothing much had moved, and then this enormous thing the size of a canoe had just rolled right in front of him and just sent him into a frenzy. And once he recovered, he ran down and said, you got to forget your bloody job. I was doing I had to deliver a book cover for Panther Books, and a paperback cover, and it was worth a lot of money. And I had to deliver it by Friday, and that's why I wasn't going to get there till Friday. Right. I said, no, I can't come. This will pay for Redmire for next year. And he said, well, you're mad because it's on the move. I've seen it, and there were bubbles later, and there was definitely things happening, but the lines never moved. And anyway, so I've just come down to tell you, get here as soon as you can. So when I came down, his eyes were still popping out of his head on the Friday. He was still frothing because of this monstrous fish. So that's the setup. He'd had a 23-pounder, I think. That's the only fish he'd had. And then while I was setting up in the willow pitch, I decided, because this fish was on the west bank, that where he had been in the style. No, Ingham's. Sorry, he was in Ingham's, which was on. I said that, didn't I? On the style. On the East Bank, sorry. So I decided, I was going to be an East Bank person, and with his permission, of course, and I was going to fish the willow. And I flicked out one rod, and I've left. So I ran to my Renault van to get something essential, like a can of sweet corn or something like that, another can of sweet corn. Got back, my silver paper was going. And Ron, I got you, jammy bastard! First cast, and it must have gone 70 yards at least, but it wasn't a big fish. It was 14-pound common.
No, got it in.
But it was got it in, and then the next morning I had a 24, also on sweet corn, and by then Bob had arrived. He was just there for the day, and Bob landed it, and Rod, we were having a cup of tea. In fact, I remember, because we were just discussing the monster, and we were all sitting in my pitch, in the willow pitch, and I made a cup of tea with a gas stove, and it was really nice because we were just sort of reminiscing on the season so far, and we thought we'd done quite well. Rod had 2 or 3 more good fish, and now I think he was sort of like 2 20s ahead of me, which I thought was I gotta try and keep up with him. But then he was always on the go. He was exhausting to fish with. It was great, and then my silver paper just went off. And I remember. In fact, I remember what this brought it back. The words, because we'd been watching this bubbler out off the willow pitch, and then I said, it's getting closer to where I cast that bait. It's getting very close. And then I said, do you want a cup of tea? And I just put the gas stove on to make another cup of tea, and then Rod just said, there you go. And the silver paper was going, because he watched the silver paper rise up to the butt ring, and they made that lovely hiss. And then they both stood up and stood back as I clicked over the pickup on the Mitchell 300. Boom. And there was just this, it just sat there and just slowly came up to the surface, and the water by then, it was cold and it was black. The Redmire had gone sort of black because of the cold. You could just see this big gold shape come up, because they go that, that lovely tone later in the year, and it just looked like giant goldfish, and it was a 24-pound common, which fought quite hard but didn't take much line. And then this story's going on too long, because then Bob went home. We'd been invited for dinner that evening by a couple we'd met in the local pub, who were a really nice couple, and said, come for supper, you need a hot meal, you've been there all week. I said, I this was on the Friday night when we'd seen them first, and so we were due there at 6 o'clock, end of October. It would be almost dark at 6 o'clock, and but then about 5 o'clock, I just said to Rod, I'm going to get one. I'm in the wrong place. I was fishing on the island. I'm going to get one there, and I pointed it out. I said, that corner of the dam. I'm going there now. I'll call you in a minute. And he gave me that look, because he knew that now and again I would have this feeling, and nearly, not every time, but most times it would work out. So I went round, sat on the corner of the dam where the old the stump there, the tree stump there, flicked out a bait with a quill float in about 5 foot water, right under the rod tip, and just sat there not on the tree stump, but sort of behind the tree stump. So I was hidden and kneeling on the ground, watching my float. Right, I've got half an hour, and we've got to get going. And within 4 or 5 minutes, there was a bubble came up, just one bubble, and I just like, yeah, that's good. And then another bubble, and another bubble was not in the same place, so you knew it was. And then the float kind of stirred, and then it just sort of went away. And I just thought, this is just too good to be true. Boom, and it started to go. And because there was no weed, I was using 6-pound line, which was obviously a mistake. I had a lot of 6-pound line. It was probably 150 yards on a full spool.
I'm surprised.
And because it was new, it was a new spool, and a new spool of 100 on top of what was an old line underneath. So I had about 50 yards left from the previous lot. So there was a knot in the middle, and that knot went through. I felt it go through the rings after about.
Just scooted up.
Just went straight down the middle of the pool. And Rod, I didn't have to shout. Rod said, I can't remember, he was some kind of disparaging comment, because he had this screaming clutch. And he came round, and I said, I think this is going to take a little while, because I said it's not stopping, but it's slowing. And eventually there was this long kind of, the rod top just throbbing, and then I started to get a little bit of line back, but it taken nearly every inch of line. It gone 2/3 of the whole length of Redmire, but right down the middle, and quite slowly. And then it started to come back, and Rod was looking at it coming back, and looking at me, and I could tell what he was thinking, because of what he'd been going on about ever since I arrived. And it came up underneath the rod tip, and the rod just went over, and nothing happened. And he said, "Go on." And he had a big landing net. He'd built it in the close season before. It was gigantic, because he'd always felt that if we were going to hook a big fish, he needed to have the net that would cope. So he pushed the net down, and I said, "It's not coming up. It's just sat on the bottom. It'll come up." And I wound down, pushed the rod under the water, and started and lifted. The edge went, and off it went. And it took nearly every inch of line, dead slow, right up the middle, and took another maybe 10-15 minutes before I got it back to the dam wall again. And then it ran over to the right slowly, and then it ran over to the left, and then it went into the corner. And I said, "Rod, you've got to frighten." This is when he went in. He's going towards where the old weed filter used to be, where the overspill was. Yeah. And I said, "Just make a lot of noise, just splash your net." He said, I'll do better than that. He just jumped in. Not in the deep water, I hasten to add, because it's quite shallow, just where when he was splashing about in there. And but when it went over the other side where the snags were, on the willow pitch side, it was running along the dam wall, and I was running along with it, holding the rod over the bushes and shrubs and the brambles, and I was having to lean right out to keep the line away from everything. And he was going towards the snags. I said, and Rod overtook me. I said, just make it, do it again. And he went in, and that was deeper there. And so there was a lot of commotion, and it drove the fish out again. And by then, it wasn't just Rod, it was me as well. I was convinced this was it. This was the big fish. And then finally, after nearly 2 hours, got up onto the surface. He was sitting on the weed filter with the net, I had it on the surface, and we could see it. By then, it was completely dark, and there was there had been a moon, but the moon had gone down while we'd been. It had been a half moon, crescent moon rather, and it had gone down, and so all we could see was this inky sort of ripple on the surface, and he got it over the net, and he started to lift, and there was a huge splash, and it went off again, but the rod was pointing down at the net, and there was S-link on the drawstring, and the line had gone through the S-link, and I thought, that's it, that's fucked, and then he shook the net, and the line went slack. Oh, bastard! He's shaking the hook out, but then everything came back again. What he'd done, he'd taken the slack away, and freed the line. And so I got back to it. We brought it back in again, and I could see this long shape coming over the net, and then coming, and then he lifted. And there was this bit of, it wasn't a big splash because 2 hours. It was quite a tired fish by then. It sort of, and he started to. He said, "Oh, look at the length of that!" And then he lifted up, but then, "Oh, it's not. I don't think it's that big." And I said, "What?" And we could see it then. Our night vision was pretty good. And it was, it wasn't a record fish, and it was like a wildie. It was, and it was just over 36 inches. We measured it, but it was a gigantic wildie, and we never saw it again. And no one had ever, we showed the pictures to Jack. We put it in the sack. It never stopped fighting in the sack, and in the morning it was still fighting, and we couldn't get a good picture, but we did take a couple of pictures of it. And it doesn't look like it looks like a long fish, but we were convinced that was the record, and so we were very late for supper that night.
I could say, did you make supper? Great. We've probably run out of time a bit. I'm conscious of time. Okay, all right. Another thing I must ask you about, because people will find this interesting, fascinating, and also slightly weird as well, is, didn't you write to Rod before you caught the record fish, saying, I think, so just prior to the season in 1980, and that the postcard has actually been reproduced, hasn't it? In one of the, how did you know?
Nobody can. You can't. I did discuss it with a psychologist once, who was a member of the Royal Society. I think she was head of the Royal Society. I did a programme on the Sixth Sense for Radio 4 once, and I talked about this. My absolute conviction that I was about to catch the biggest carp in the country. And that card that was published, by the way, that wasn't the card I sent him. Oh. That was the card I sent him from Redmire on the morning after to say I just landed that fish.
Sorry.
But I had sent a card to him and to not Jasper. Burt Whistle, and to Nick.
Right. To Nick, yeah.
To Nick. I sent 3, maybe 4 cards to people to say, by the time you get this card, I posted it on the way to Redmire on the 15th, and so it was stamped 15th of June. So by the time you get this card, I will have caught the record carp. And that was the weirdest thing. I've never done anything like that before. I often felt my chance, I've got something's going to happen. And Rod would always, but Rod knew from our experiences together that if I had a very strong feeling about us, where to fish, what might happen, he would always say, you daft southerner, and then he'd say, but I think we should do that. After the end of that first season, I think at least we could try it. And he never had complete faith in me, but he knew there was something weird going on. Maybe it was because it was Redmire, because Redmire is a very strange place.
What did the psychologist make of your predictions?
She put it down to, she called it patterns of experience. Patterns of experience, patterns of observation. That we see all the time, especially when we're in a situation like at Redmire, where it's very calm and you're noticing all the various natural rhythms going on around you, and you start to, without being conscious of it, you start to join up the dots. That's how she put it, and therefore you get a kind of, you can predict something's happening where you can predict where this is all going to lead. And I said, well, that's not really what happens, because I'm not there. I'm somewhere else. I was at home, and I suddenly knew I was starting to get quite this very strong conviction that when I went to Redmire, I would catch this fish, and as I said, told Rod, and by then he had more faith in me by then. Not that we fished it. It was a shame we didn't fish much together then, because he'd left. And
just let me, before I forget, you'd also seen and fished with Rod at places other than Redmire.
Sappy,
Right,
Johnson's.
Right, okay. And obviously he was carp fishing there.
Yeah, of course.
And didn't he catch a big one at Save while you were there with him? The picture on the front cover of his book. You took that shot.
The Bronica.
The Bronica camera took that shot.
Took several rolls of black and white there, and I lost a big fish on his special bait. So I was very good at losing fish, but that's because I refused to use a hair rig. I still.
Well, you're in the realms of the hair then.
And it was a pretty solid bait. I just tried to sort of side hook it, but I had it on for quite some time. It was a good 20, but it rolled off in the end. But
did you catch any at Johnson's when you went to see Rod? Can you remember?
He had. I remember he had a really big tench once. Really pushing which was big at that time. It was pushing sort of 7 pounds.
Whopper.
He had a couple of low 20s when I was with him. And I remember with Fred Wilton, who was down there that one day, and a couple of those other Kent regulars. We were all having a bit of a barney on the bank, and I just arrived on a big Kawasaki. I had a big 900 motorcycle then, and he said, so show us one of those new rods you just got hold of. And I'd got this. I said, this isn't a new rod. This is the rod that I'd lost a big fish at Redmire, which was the sea trout rod, the Hardy rod. He'd been intrigued by it because he used to fish with a little one of his daughters, the little rods. He used to stalk at Redmire with this little solid glass rod, and he had several 20s on that little rod. This was like a pre-war version of that rod, and so I said, feel the action, and it was 8 foot, 2-piece, like my very first rod, and I put a reel on it. I said, go on. Hook me up to the back of my bike, see if you can stop me. So I roared off along the track on my 900cc motorcycle with dust everywhere, and he tried to stop me before I got to the end of the track, and everyone sort of fell around laughing. But he said, God, it's a good rod. I said, and then of course I pretended it had stopped me halfway around. I put both brakes on, skidded into it, and crashed into the undergrowth.
Finally, can you remember the last time you saw Rod personally?
I think it was. It would have been at the NEC.
Right, at Go Fishing.
Yeah, yes, right. And he was in a good mood. He probably had a couple of bottles of wine at that lunchtime by the time I got to him, and we were sitting in. I think we were meant to be sitting in Terry's bivvy. Terry, come on, give me the Terry.
Eustace?
No, not Terry Eustace. There's another one. There's all these Terrys.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were sitting
before Terry Hearn. Yeah.
No, it was Terry.
Oh, was it right?
It was Terry Hearn. Yes,
right, okay.
yes, it was Terry Hearn.
Okay.
And we were having to do a session in front of quite a big crowd. And we were doing what we're doing now. We were talking about Redmire mostly.
Sure.
Although there was Terry talking about his experiences elsewhere, and there was somebody else too. There was 4 of us, but Rod took centre stage. It was great.
Did he?
He came out with some great stories, and he was such a good storyteller because his delivery was quite kind of it's quite matter of fact. And so when it got more sort of surreal and more exciting, he hardly raised the level of his voice, but it just made it more exciting in a way. It was he was great fun to talk with, just to have a chat with, and although I think I did see him again once. But I can't remember where it was. It might have been a book signing or something like that. But and we used to write occasionally, but then we'd phone occasionally, and then these last 5 years I haven't really. And not until Christmas before this last one, when I got a card from him, and that's the first time I'd heard from him. And there was a really nice message there, and I thought, I'm going to have to write to him. There was something in the message which was, it was quite poignant, and I thought, because I knew he hadn't been well, so I was going to write him a New Year letter. But I must get around to that. I'm very bad at getting around to correspondence now, and I never got around to it. And then the next thing I knew, he wasn't even there to get the letter. So it was, I was very, very sad to hear that he'd gone. But we had some great times together, and I think the happiest times I've ever had fishing, ever, were was that first year, and the best day we ever had was the beginning of the second year in '73 when we started. It's like a lottery. We got the first week, and it was Rod and I, and Rod had been, and Bob Jones had, because it was a Sunday, he was going to be there just for the Sunday, and he was going to have to be at school. Had to get up crack of dawn on the Monday morning to go to school, just like a naughty boy. But and it was wonderful. It was just so good. We both had a £20 that night. A lovely moonlit night, I remember. And he had the first one at 2 minutes past midnight. I heard him cast, and his swim was so boiling with fish because he'd been there for like 2 days. He said, "Climb up this tree. Look at that lot." And he said, "Wait till midnight." And I said, "They'll be gone by midnight. They'll know." But they weren't gone. And he had a 22, and then I had a 25 at 3 a.m. And on the other bank, he was on the west bank. I was on the east bank. I was on Green Banks, and I was 25. And that was the beginning of our best. It was a fantastic week, and we both had, wonderful fish. I think we both ended up with 320s each, and lots of big doubles, and Jack and Tom managed to get a few because they needed to be there for that week because they couldn't make their own official week, so we let them, and that was, I think, the beginning of a bit of a rift, because they fished quite hard, but neither of them had a chance. Mm-hmm. And they looked at us, always on the go, always climbing trees, and they just it's too exhausting.
Young guns.
Young guns. You never stop. I said, but we're only here for the week. We want to make the best of it, And they were a little bit disturbed, I think, by our completely wild and unstoppable enthusiasm and energy. We wouldn't sleep. Or I would sleep very little through that whole week. We end up looking like a couple of ghosts by the end, but we'd got a lot of fish while they were just sitting in their bivvies. They would never move.
Wonderful memories. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing that with us and everybody who will listen to this at the tribute weekend. Thank you.
And I'm sorry I can't be there.
Marvellous, absolutely. So you've got a real flavour there of that. Absolutely fantastic. That'll be available online tonight on Carp Radio, the Carp Society's Carp Radio, from 7 o'clock onwards. So you can download it as and keep it and then listen to it at your leisure. All right, you've been sitting down for a while. Go and have a break. We'll see you later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just about.